Hey everyone, it's Scott again, and we are here back on my bariatric journey. So if you watched my first couple of videos, I talked about how I got into bariatric surgery, how I got it, why I got it, where it happened, all that kind of stuff. So in the last video, I talked a lot about the day of the surgery and like the night after the surgery, right? The night in the hospital that's required because it's an inpatient surgery. So in this video, I want to talk about like the recovery process from like going home from the hospital all the way up until 6 months, or actually 3 months. In 3 months, I had my first follow-up with the surgeon, and that's kind of what I want this video to sort of circumvent. So the surgery actually went, if you saw my other video, went well. I had absolutely zero complications and thought it was something pretty, I don't want to do it again, but at the same time, it really wasn't bad. I was lucky that everything went as planned. I remember mentioning it to the doctor and the surgeon. He said, well, we have a process and the process works, right? So I thought that was great that he said that. But for me, kind of like the next step was healing, right? You have wounds, you have several wounds. I had about, I would say 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 wounds where they went into my gut to make the incisions. And those, for the most part, healed pretty quickly. The only problem I had is that I had an allergic reaction to the glue that they used. So it was very itchy, and I had to go get over-the-counter cortisone to kind of reduce the itch. That lasted for about a week or so, and then really no complaints. They put sort of these staple-less glue on the wound, and that was it. So really the next thing was like obviously 1, starting to eat again, and 2, like the actual weight loss. So the weight loss by November, I believe, was already down to like the 240s, if you will, 230, 240. So I had already lost like a ton of weight in just a couple months. I remember looking at some pictures of when we went to this Cover Bridge Festival in October, and I was still wearing my old clothes, but I was definitely thinner at that point, so they were right, it was a rapid weight loss. And I think that a lot of that has to do with, 1, your body has changed, and of course your sort of mentality changes a little bit, but at the same time you can't eat, and I think that's really what I like to talk about. It's the deficiency factor, right? You're deficient on calories, and therefore your body is consuming what calories and fat it has. So eating was a challenge, and I did have some, of course, mistakes or overindulgences. Not right away, but I definitely found a couple things of like, you learn your limits whether you want to or not. I think one of the first things I overate was just everyday food like eggs, and I was eating a lot of eggs. I was eating a lot of cheese, cottage cheese, eggs, like scrambled eggs, that kind of stuff. Small portions were kind of like my radar at that point. I did not actually have a puree diet. They actually put me on solid foods right away. This is just the program that I was on, that they don't do a puree program. They go from basically 2 weeks of liquid only, so protein shakes. At that point, I switched over to Premier Protein, which is my preferred protein shakes, versus the Atkins that I was on the week before the diet. So Premier Protein for 2 weeks, and any type of sugar-free liquids, if you will. Once that was over, obviously I was down, the weight would start kind of peeling off of me at that point, because you're not really eating any solid foods, and even just breathing consumes calories. So that was kind of like where I was at that point. I did take a couple trips. Like, I was pretty active right away. I don't feel like I laid in bed or anything like that. I mean, I was cleared to work out, go to the gym basically immediately. Of course, you don't want to go hard, but you want to start walking around. And I think when you first get surgery, like obviously walking is probably your priority. You just want to walk. Make sure you walk for 30 minutes a day. Try to get your 10,000 steps in, however you decide, 7,000 steps, if that works better for you. Like, that was kind of my first initial goal, was just walking. Once I got to that 3-month mark, the surgeon cleared me for strenuous activity. So that was like when I really started kind of ramping up at the gym, and kind of starting to really hit the treadmill, really hit the elliptical, and start to do more weightlifting, like lower body for sure, you know. So that's like a whole nother video, like after that, like getting into a kind of a workout routine. But mostly in the beginning, you're obviously just doing stuff that is kind of just calorie burning and cardio like, that is going to help get the weight off, because once the weight's off, then getting back to the gym is much easier, much more comfortable, much easier to sort of maintain that gym thing. One thing that I also found out too is like I was like, losing weight has helped me like in the morning a lot. I'm not a morning person. I always say that I was never a morning person. I almost only want to say it now because I've always wanted to be a morning person. And I think that the truth is I am a morning person. I just had to sort of reframe the situation. And I think that obviously sleeping, when you're 300 pounds, you don't sleep very well. I had the CPAP situation, that going on. You know, there's just a lot of things that kind of like are going against your sort of sleep habits. So for me, once I was able to kind of get to a certain weight, then I was able to sleep a lot better, and therefore getting up and going to the gym in the morning at 4, 5, 6 a.m. is much easier and much more accomplishable for me. So that, if anything, out of all this entire thing, like that's definitely been a win for me, because I feel like I'm finally getting into the morning routine that I actually want to live on, and that's been a huge success, and I'm so grateful for it now that I've sort of been given the second chance. So that first 3 months is really when you start to learn your limits in terms of eating and drinking. I did, you know, I went months without having any sugar, and then I remember on Thanksgiving, we were at a friend's house on Black Wednesday, and I decided that I could have pie. I don't know why I thought that, but I was like, I'm gonna have some pie, apple pie or something like that. And I had the pie, and I felt so disgusted after I ate it, like, and that's what they call the dumping syndrome, where I felt like I wanted to throw up, and I felt like I wanted to sleep, and it's just not a good situation. So that's when I realized I really do have to avoid sugars. I was avoiding sugars for my diet, but I wasn't really avoiding, I guess I just didn't think about it, but I wasn't really avoiding sugar yet for that dumping syndrome yet, because I hadn't had any, and hadn't experienced it yet. So at that point I realized, wow, I really can't have sugar. And I've heard different like sort of things about that scenario. I haven't looked a ton into it myself, but I know I overheard the doctor say one time that it could be something that you may not experience at all based on you. It's kind of like a thing that not everyone experiences. It could be something that you experience a couple times, or it could be something that you just are going to have to live with for the rest of your life. Now for me, I made that decision that I want to live this way because I don't want to be overweight, so I'd rather just not eat sugar, especially anything with added sugars, to my diet, right? So that's something that I made a decision on, and my goal is to keep sugar out of my diet for as long as I'm able, you know. And that is how I plan to maintain my weight. Now that being said, sugar is in everything. Everything you eat has sugar. I know even the Jimmy Dean's egg witches, which are meant to be keto friendly, have like 3 or 4 grams of sugar. So it's extremely difficult not to have any sugar in your diet, but you definitely have to limit the sugar that you take. I remember, I think the dietitian said I can't have anything that has more than like 8 grams of sugar in it. And that would be, you know, and keep in mind, like that's like for the entire day, you know, so. And mostly it's not necessarily because of my diet, but I also don't want to get sick. Like, you don't want to be out and about and then all of a sudden you're not feeling well, right? So for me, sugar substitutes like the stevias have been a godsend. That way I still have something sweet and I can still enjoy some sweetness in my day. I know drinking iced coffee with cream, and which actually has sugar in it because there's lactose, right? So iced coffee with cream and stevia is like my go-to drink. That's one thing that I drink probably too much of. If I could, I should drink less of it and drink more water. But obviously, like the sugar-free water things like the Mios and stuff like that, as long as they're sugar-free, are all okay. And those are great. Those are great ways to sort of keep yourself hydrated and not have just plain water, because to me that gets boring and I can only drink so much of it and I'm done, right? So that's a little bit of like my diet. At that time I was eating just a lot of hard-boiled eggs, like eggs, you know. I was gonna do smoothies, but the new dietitian told me that she really kind of wanted me to avoid smoothies because, like, I was planning on eating smoothies. I thought that was going to be like my diet afterwards, but she's like, the problem is you put too much fruit in a smoothie and then you got way too much sugar, right? So I actually have not had smoothies since then. I've been just sticking, if I want something like a smoothie, I just have a protein shake instead. But that is something to consider if you love smoothies or you think you're going to survive on that, then I would check with your dietitian and what they think. I actually even bought like a cookbook. It's actually right here. It happens to be right here on bariatric smoothies, and I've unfortunately never used it because of what the doctor said. The author here, Stacy, has some decent recipes that are pretty low in sugar. You can have some sugar, you just have to really watch it and limit it. And also you do want to have fiber. Like, fiber is important too. In the first 3 months that I'm talking about now, they really want you to limit your fiber intake to 0. You know, like for example, obviously vegetables are high in fiber, but I really had 0 vegetables at that time because they're really, really hard to digest and they're very uncomfortable to eat. Like lettuce, especially iceberg lettuce, is a big no-no because actually, as I was told from my medical team, that iceberg lettuce is like something that even for normal stomach people, you know, like is hard to digest. Lettuce is just something that's not easy to digest, and therefore it's not something that definitely can't have in that first 3 or 4 months of surgery. Even today, now that I'm 6 to 8 months into my surgery, when I have lettuce, I can't eat very much. You know, I'll have some, mainly because it's a high fiber food, and I like a salad. What can I say? But lettuce is something that like is kind of like in the category of like tough meat, like steaks. Like it's really hard to eat, and it's not something that I'm going to have a lot of. If I do, I'm going to have like this much or this much, like a cup of lettuce. So even going to like Chipotle, which Chipotle is something I can eat now. I can actually eat almost the whole bowl. But I would like to add lettuce, but if I add lettuce, I can't eat very much of it, you know, so it's something I have to decide if I want it or not. Today I was going to have a salad at Chipotle, but the lettuce looked kind of wilted, so I decided to just get rice. And when I go, I ask for like half rice, because although I'm trying to watch my carbs, it's good to have some carbs once you get to where I'm at today. Obviously not in the first 3 months. First 3 months is really high protein, no sugar, water. And that really got me down quite a bit to a point where I was feeling comfortable. Once I got to my 6-month check-in, then I was cleared for a full diet, which that's when things get tricky, right? Because then you can eat a lot more. There are things you can't eat, which is good. It's still a tool. It still slows you down. It still kind of stops you from overeating, but you can still add more foods to your diet, and you can eat like small meals all day long, that's when I started tracking calories again, or at least I tried to track calories, because at some point, you know, if you eat like, you know, let's say you have a protein shake every hour, that's still going to be over 2,000 calories a day, right? So you still have to be careful at some point. So anyways, that was kind of my journey between the first 3 months. Obviously at that point, there's still a risk for blood clots. So going, and if you're going to take any trips or anything like that, like actually another camping trip with the guys I know, but you know, I had to stop and we had to walk around on our trip that was about 3 hours away. So about halfway through I had to stop and go for a walk, and that kind of was a little difficult because at that time I really was watching what I was drinking, and except for water, you know, like when you go to gas stations in small towns, like they don't necessarily have like super coffee which doesn't have any sugar in it and it's high in protein, or they don't have like protein shakes with, you know, no sugar in them, right? So it gets a little tricky. I did actually bring my own little cooler, like with my own cottage cheese and my own cheese sticks and my own sort of like snacks, just in case. Also, like going out to dinner at that time was hard. I remember we went to a like fish place, like a tavern place, and the only thing on the menu I thought I could eat was going to be fried fish. And I don't know why fish fried like is what I thought I could eat at that time. Fried foods is actually something you should avoid, especially at that period of the game. But I ate it and I was in so much pain. It was bad, you know. So that fried foods, it was whitefish, so the actual insides of the fish weren't bad. But I should have asked them to bake the fish. That probably would have been better than having it fried. But it was not good, and my friends could tell I was in a ton of pain because I ate too much, and you know, it was not good. Of course, I had a little alcohol too, like beer. Beer will fill you up. You really should avoid beer, but of course you can have something every once in a while, right? So that weekend I allowed myself to have 1 or 2 beers. Of course, the other challenge was like drinks that didn't have sugar in them. If you go to the store and buy like canned beverages, like there's not much that doesn't have sugar in it. So that's kind of like difficult right there. Just limiting what you have, maybe just having one, testing your limits a little bit. You kind of have to test your limits a little bit because it just, you know, you find yourself in scenarios where you don't know what to do, like, or you're stuck. Like another time I remember where I actually threw up, probably one of the first times I threw up, was I had to go to a business lunch, and it's like buffet style, and it's like a presentation kind of thing, and they like had chicken, like, you know, like pieces of chicken, and I was like, well, what am I gonna do? I'm sitting at a table with my colleagues. At that point, no one knew. I hadn't even told anyone because I hadn't lost any weight yet. So I ate the chicken. I probably had a bite too many, and between dinner or lunch and the speaker, I ended up going upstairs and throwing up. Like it hurt so bad, and I just was at a point where I had to throw up. And what happens is it's like it's in your esophagus. So when it's like in your esophagus, you like can't, it's not like you can't breathe, but it's like really heavy pain. And and you can feel it like not being able to get into your stomach. And at that point, you know, sometimes I have to throw up, sometimes I have to kind of make myself throw up. But you kind of know after it happens like twice, like when it helps you understand your limits, and when you know before you get to that point where you're at. And of course, it's also dependent on the type of food you're eating. If you're eating grounded up chicken or grounded up beef that's in a Chipotle bowl, like that's much easier. You can eat a lot more of that than you can if you're going to eat a piece of chicken, grilled chicken or steak, or as I mentioned, lettuce. Like that stuff is going to fill you up quicker and not be as easy to eat. So dinner outs are tricky even today. Although I'm able to eat more and I'm able to make more sensible choices of stuff that I know I'm going to be able to eat. Also, like I get a takeout box. There's been a couple times now where we've gone out and I've got a sandwich and I've only had half the sandwich and I took it home. All right, we ordered pad thai. Probably not supposed to eat pad thai, but actually my wife ordered it and she had leftovers and I didn't want it to go to waste because she didn't like it, so I figured I'd eat a little bit of it. I brought it home. I had a little bit of the chicken that was in it, and that's all I could eat because the chicken is grilled chicken, right? So there's things you have to be careful with. I think my point is that just because you have bariatric surgery doesn't mean you can't live a normal life, if you will. You can sort of feel a sense of normalcy at some point. That first 3 to 6 months though will not be normal. I don't recommend having any major plans at that point other than focusing on exercising and losing weight. But at the same time, eating out is becoming a little more common. I'm adding more and more foods into my diet now that are quote unquote more normal, but now at the same time I have to be careful because I can gain weight, you know, so it's definitely a challenge. But also the good news is that I've excelled at the gym to the point where I can run a mile without stopping, you know, kind of thing, at a pretty decent pace. So I'm building my endurance, I'm building my strength, and that will help me maintain my weight too. Obviously, I know back in the day when I lost weight the first time, if I went to the gym every day, I could eat whatever I wanted, you know, for the most part. So that, and since I don't eat sugar, that for the most part should help me maintain my weight and continue to lose to get to my actual end goal. So anyways, that's a little bit of the first 3 months. So of course there were some other things, but I'm doing other videos, so I'll circle back to them if I remember exactly everything that happened at that point. Thanks for watching. If you like this content, you're thinking about bariatric surgery yourself, or maybe you went through the process, or maybe you're looking to lose again, please like and subscribe. This channel is all about building your better you, whether you have surgery, whether you have health, wealth, love issues, whatever. We want to live the most fantastic life that we can live. Especially when we hit middle age. Me, I'm 40, and I want to make sure that I continue the rest of my life living a positive mental attitude and focusing on what I can do to help better myself to get to the end of my era, right? So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.